Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Basketball Maestros podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Free agency has, for the most part, calmed down since it started about almost a week ago, 6 days from July 1st. And today we're going to talk about some winners and losers. We got about 4 winners and 4 losers each, so talk back and forth. We don't know each other's lists, so we'll see if there's any disagreements on certain things. But what do you want to start with, a loser or a winner?
I think let's do losers first.
All right. So my first loser, not necessarily a team, but my first loser is going to be Mr. James Harden. Um, Again, another trade request. He opted into his deal with the 76ers, but he's looking for a trade out of Philadelphia and again, forced his way out of Houston, forced his way out of Brooklyn, and now forcing his way out of Philadelphia. And at this point in time, it seems like he's probably going to be an LA Clipper at this point. It kind of looks like that way. But Philly's probably going to be a little more stubborn in terms of what they get back for Harden. It seems like Terrence Mann may be a contingent point on a Harden deal. So I guess we'll see. But just overall for Harden, he was heading into this free agency wanting like a max kind of deal. Originally, it seemed like he wanted to be back in Houston, back being a Rocket, and the Rockets decided to pivot somewhere else, and they signed Fred VanVleet. So Harden's looking for a new home. Has yet to be determined, but it looks like he's going to be a Clipper. But overall, I just don't like the look of this for his career. Kind of just forcing his way out of now 3 teams in like 3.5, 4 years now. So a little bit of a stain on his career. So, I mean, if you're him, you kind of hope that this next place is your final place. And again, not the greatest playoff performer. We saw it in Game 7 against Boston. Him and Embiid just didn't get it done. So who knows? Maybe if he does go to the Clippers, maybe things will turn around for his career. But yeah, I'm not liking him being on his 4th team in the past couple of seasons. So that's probably my first loser of free agency.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna say my first. I'm gonna say I think the Heat have had a pretty bad free agency. Now, yes, Dame did say that that's kind of where he wants to go in his big trade request, but I just feel like, you weren't able to really add or kind of retain any pieces that helped you get to your NBA Finals appearance last year. You traded away Victor Oladipo. You lost out on Gabe Vincent. Lost out on Max Strus. And I'm not saying that they should have re-signed those guys because both of those players were looking for a lot more money than I think that the team was willing to give them. But there's just been no, moves, and it's once again been a very quiet and very kind of disappointing free agency for Miami Heat fans. And now you're just kind of banking on everything that you get Dame, and if you don't get Dame, this team's definitely not going to be a finals team next year. But yeah, I think after another really successful year, I think Miami fans really want to see you guys take or see the team take another little step in getting a superstar or kind of make strides at going a little bit further. And I just feel like that Miami's kind of been a little bit too laid back. You saw with the Bradley Beal kind of trade talks. Just it didn't feel like, and there are reports saying the Heat just weren't aggressive enough. And obviously, they're turning their eyes to Dame, and we'll just kind of have to see how that trade, works out. But I still, depending on how much they give up and depending on what happens, they still, could be a objectively worse team next year. So we'll just kind of have to see. But I just feel like these past couple of free agencies, the Heat have just been way too passive and just haven't, really done a good job at improving their roster.
So if the Heat do get Dame, say like for Tyler Hero, a couple firsts and like some other fillers, do you still view them as a loser, or does that change your mind?
Personally, I still view him as I have if it was just Tyler Hero and a couple first. I just their depth kind of obviously lacks a little bit because they lost so many players. But I would kind of view him in the middle of the pack. I would see it as a win of getting Day, but I'd still kind of see it as a lose because you lost another bench piece and another scorer in Tyler Hero. So um, I'd I'd still call it. I'd just put him in the middle of the pack if that makes sense. I don't think there's
Gotcha.
necessarily a win or lose.
And kind of going into my next loser, it's kind of sort of relates to Dame, but the Portland Trailblazers, we've given them their fair share of slander throughout um, past season in terms of their direction and how they operate as a franchise. And it looked like they're heading down that same road. I think his name is Joe Cronin, the GM. He came out and said that they're committed to building a winner with Damian Lillard, and everybody kind of thought that, oh, well, Dame's probably just going to stay there for however long his career is. But finally, Dame requested out, and now the biggest thing is you have Jeremy Grant tied up for 5 years, making $32 million a year, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense now. Granted that Dame's probably going to be on the move. I don't see why you keep him around, but depending on who they get in the Damian Lillard package, I know it's kind of getting a little messy with, I believe, Dame's agent saying that don't trade for him. He only wants to go to Miami, so we'll see how his trade market looks like. But for the Blazers, it's mainly a loser for me in terms of giving Jeremy Grant just a huge bag for Dame just to request a trade a couple days later. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense now. And is Jeremy Grant going to be your main guy moving forward besides Scoot? I don't know if I want Jeremy Grant to be the face of my rebuild. I'd rather just have Scoot be the guy and not spend 32 mil on a veteran. So, not a great start to a rebuild, it looks like. But, I mean, you got Scoot, Shaden Sharp. I mean, decent start, I suppose. But got a lot of work to do. You got to clear off. I don't even know what you do with Jeremy Grant now. He's probably just stuck there like a Detroit Pistons situation that he did a couple years ago. Now you're with Nurkic and you have a couple other veteran pieces. So it'd be interesting to see how they kind of kick off that rebuild in terms of moving off guys. But I feel like they're kind of doing this rebuild a little too late. But I mean, better late than never, I suppose. But yeah, just weird front office and organizational direction the past couple of seasons. And that Jeremy Grant contract did not look great when it first came out, and now it somehow looks even worse with Dame requesting out. So Blazers are for sure a loser in my eyes.
Yeah. My next team, I'm gonna say the Cavs. I think what kind of sealed it for me was the Max Strus 4 years, 63 million. Now, I think Max Strus had a hell of a playoff run, and I think he did things that Miami no one really would have expected. But I think to really double down and give him this 4 year contract, I think it's a little much. I think Cleveland definitely overpaid. And I think with this whole sign and trade and just kind of the pieces that Cleveland has added with like Georges Niang and just really no one else, I just feel like that they haven't really improved their roster too much, and they really haven't addressed the needs that kind of hurt them in that playoff series against the Knicks. They're kind of rolling it back with, I don't even know if they've gotten, oh, well, they got Damian Jones, but, is Damian Jones like
Laker legend.
is he like the answer and someone that can really help you win a playoff series? I don't know, but I'm gonna just go ahead and say no. But um, this roster, I can just kind of see him maybe getting to the second round and maybe another first round exit. I just feel like they haven't really gotten that much better. They haven't made an effort to really make a big splash move. And if your big splash move in the entire offseason is getting a sign and trade with Max Strus, then I don't know how successful your offseason really has been. But we'll have to just kind of see how it pans out. But I think Cleveland is kind of gearing up and just kind of making the moves that just look like it's going to be a kind of the same ending that it was, last season.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Their position of need was definitely the small forward. And yeah, Max Strus is good. His shooting can be a little streaky at points in time. But Georges Niang, I mean, paying him $8 is a little crazy in my eyes, but hey, you never know. The minivan, he had some moments in the playoffs, hit some clutch threes here and there, but yeah, not sure if those signings for the small forward spot really moved me. So then another pretty disappointing team for in terms of their organizational direction. The Golden State Warriors. You lose Bob Myers and you bring in Mike Dunleavy, who's had a questionable start to his GMing career. Um, he moves off Jordan Poole, which, I mean, yeah, last year he was pretty bad, but when you won a championship, he was pretty vital, and he's still very young in his career. So, not necessarily sure where Warrior fans stand out on Jordan Poole after last postseason, but I feel like for the most part, most people didn't like him. Um, but I mean, you trade a young player to Washington and you attach picks to him just to get him off your roster, which is a little crazy. Which I mean, you did pay him a lot of money in his extension, but you're usually not attaching picks to a young player just to get him off your team. I found that a little crazy. Um, you bring in Chris Paul in that trade, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me. You trade for Chris Paul, so you're taking on his full $30 million this year, and I cannot imagine he's going to start. So you're kind of paying a $30 million backup point guard at this point, which in the Warriors' free flowing offense, he can definitely help with that in terms of his passing. But if you have Steph and Chris Paul on the floor at the same time, you're going to get cooked defensively. So, and then they haven't made many signings after that. You signed Corey Joseph, who, I mean, sure, he's another small point guard that you don't really need. I mean, veteran presence, sure, since he was like a big part of the Spurs runs back in the heyday. But yeah, for Mike Dunleavy to kick it off with CP3 and Corey Joseph is not really that great. I mean, you bring back Draymond, I believe it was 4 years, 100, paying him 25 a year. Maybe a little bit of an overpay, but I mean, he's just kind of vital to what the Warriors do over there. So if you do lose Draymond, um, probably not the greatest since this free agency class doesn't really have a good replacement for him. So I'll give him a pass there, bringing back Draymond. But overall, for a team that has an aging core with Curry, Clay, and Draymond, not great to move off Jordan Poole for an aging Chris Paul, who's on a bad contract, and Corey Joseph, who, when it's all said and done at the end of next year, probably isn't going to do a whole lot of nothing. So for a team that I'll say they got pretty embarrassed in the Lakers series. They just kind of ran out of steam, didn't really have any answers to the Lakers defense. So wasn't great for the Warriors. And heading into this offseason, you kind of expect more change than what they did so far. There's still time, but can imagine there's many more moves for what they did right now. So definitely a loser to me.
Yeah, the Warriors, I think, definitely haven't done really that good of a job. And I don't think Chris Paul, like you kind of said, solves any of the problems you had. Um, going into that loss against LA. But I heard Draymond talk about it on the Paul George podcast, and he was just kind of saying it brings more like versatility and just kind of like um, a different like option and just kind of like a different player, which I guess is kind of true. Chris Paul is definitely something that the Warriors really haven't had, but I think when it comes to the best teams in the West and the guys you're going to be playing in the playoffs, I don't know. I think you need to find something like a big or something else that's not Draymond, and ultimately Warriors didn't do that, so I don't really like the kind of direction that they're going in. I'm going to say another loser for me, and I don't know how much that they really were expecting in this offseason, but I'm going to say the Raptors. I think the Jakob Poeltl deal was a little. I think he got overpaid a little bit. 4 years, $80 million. I don't really like that deal too much for them. And then I think the Dennis deal it's a pretty good deal for Dennis, and I think both sides pretty good. But I'm pretty sure that being like your only main two moves in the offseason, I don't think it's really too good for a team that's kind of looking like they want to run it back. They also lost Fred VanVleet to the Rockets. Now, I wasn't expecting them to get VanVleet back because the Rockets offered him an absolute bag. But for you to really not do anything and not really kind of fight it back, and you did draft um, Grady Dick in the draft, but I just don't see how this team kind of goes and moves on from this. There are still so many reports of Pascal, wanting to leave and him getting traded, and a lot of uncertainty there. But I think when you just look at this roster and you look at kind of how they lost to the Bulls and the fashion they did last year, and you look at what they've done so far, and just I don't know if they've really addressed anything that kind of hurt them. So I think this year is going to be another up and down year for the Raptors, and maybe some of their young guys figure it out. Maybe OG can take another step. Maybe Scotty, steps out a little bit more, and maybe Grady's just that guy. But I think overall, the moves and just on paper, I think the Raptors have definitely had a lackluster and just kind of a um, underwhelming offseason so far.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the Raptors are running it back. Chris Haynes said that they're working on a lucrative extension for Gary Trent Jr. So those numbers haven't came out yet. So judging by lucrative extension, I'm very intrigued to see how much they pay him. But yeah, I mean, at the deadline last season, people were kind of expecting them to move off of guys, maybe even OG. But Masai Ujiri just doesn't want to move off those guys. I feel like OG can probably get you maybe 2, maybe 3 if you push it. First round picks, and Pascal can probably net you probably about the same. I mean, yeah, there's not much to say about this team. There's not really a very high ceiling on this team, but I mean, heading into this offseason, when Laker fans are kind of talking about Dennis and if he's worth the mid level, I personally did not think he was worth that. Maybe like around like the 5 to 8 million range, I would say, maybe 10 max. But for Dennis personally, that's a great deal. Probably going to be back in a solidified starting role, I imagine. And so it's going to be a good deal for him. And the Raptors just going to be in the worst stage of an NBA organization is just mediocrity. So we'll see if anything changes. Maybe at the deadline, if things are still mid, maybe they'll pivot. But you never know with Masai. So I guess we'll see. And for my final loser, I kind of don't know how to view this team as a loser or not. Kind of in the in between stages, but I'll put them at a loser for now. But the Houston Rockets, they gave Fred obviously a huge bag, 3 years max deal. I believe it's 120, I want to say. And then you give Dylan Brooks 4 years, 80, 20 mil a year. And then you sign Jock Landale to a $32 million deal, which first year's guaranteed. I believe rest of the years aren't. So, I mean, kind of saving yourself there, but 8 mil for Jock Landale in the first year is kind of an overpay and kind of insane in my eyes. But I mean, in terms of the team itself, I think it's a win. You bring in veteran pieces. You got Udoka there now. It's kind of at the stage of the Rockets where they got to start winning again, at least start being somewhat competitive of a team on a nightly basis. I think they'll for sure be a league pass team for me. I'll definitely tune into games, but just in terms of the money that they spent on specifically Dylan and Fred, it's a little crazy for my liking. Who knows? Maybe if they offered him like mid to high 30s, maybe he would just return to Toronto. So, I mean, I understand the thought process of just throwing him money so you can for sure get him to Houston. But, I mean, you already got kind of a scoring for or backcourt with Jalen Green. You got Fred in there. Now you got KBJ in the mix. So got a lot of scoring point guards. And they just drafted a Sar Thompson or one of the Thompson twins. I forget, but yeah, we'll see how it works for them. But I think for the direction, it's good. But just the money is a little for me. Wouldn't be my taste, but I mean, if it's the only option you had, I mean, sure. I mean, in the worst case scenario, it's a 3-year deal, and you're not tied up for like 4 to 5 years. So we'll see how it pans out for Houston. But I think at the very least, there'll be a competitive, maybe fight for a playing spot if all goes well. So we'll see.
Yeah, I was kind of on the edge of putting them in my loser list, but I mean, you just have so much money, you have so many young guys, and it's kind of hard to put them as a loser because they kind of had to spend the money, but just
Yeah.
the deals were really just not very good. So it's kind of a 50-50 for now. We'll obviously, just like you said, have to see how it plays out, but I'm definitely excited to see how this Rockets team plays this year. I don't expect, you know, top 8 seed or playoffs, maybe play in, but we'll just have to kind of see what happens. But definitely bright future for them. I'm going to go ahead and start with my last loser. I'm going to go with the Charlotte Hornets. And my
One.
main two reasons are I think the LaMelo Ball extension, now I think it was kind of necessary, but I feel like it could backfire on them. I think he's definitely been hurt a lot, and we've all seen it. LaMelo hurts his ankle like every other week, it feels like, in the NBA. So I know a bunch of other guys like Tyrese, Ant were getting extensions, and I feel like, it was only right for LaMelo to get one because I do think he has the potential. But I think as of now, what we've seen, it's definitely a little scary to give him that. And I don't really know if I like the Hornets committing to a big deal like that. But we'll just kind of see how it pans out. But I think for now, I don't really like that deal. But I think for the main reason, I think that their offseason has been a loss, has been through the draft. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
have given them criticism for taking Brandon Miller, and I am one of those people. I don't hate Brandon Miller. I think that he has had a couple rough games in summer league, and I think that definitely doesn't help him. But I think when you have a guy like Scoot, and I think a lot of people see the same way, is I think that they 100% should have taken Scoot with that second overall pick. I'm a big believer in best player available, especially if you're bad enough to be getting the second pick in the draft. There really shouldn't be a worry of, you know, oh, we got to get this certain position, or we got to do these certain things to make it make sense. And no, there, just get the best player available. Get what player will really help your team win the most. And I think that Scoot was that guy. Obviously they didn't go with him. They ended up going with Brandon Miller, and we'll just have to see how it plays out But so far, it's not looking good. I think he has more fouls than points right now in 2 games, which I think is insanity. So I know Hornets fans are definitely not happy, and it definitely doesn't look good so far. But we've seen a lot of rookies struggle in the summer league. Seen a lot of rookies struggle early on in their careers, and we'll have to hope this one pans out because under Michael Jordan, the Hornets drafting hasn't been too hot. So we'll have to kind of see, if this is another bust and if Charlotte will really have to be sad over another draft pick.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They haven't done much in terms of signings, and then we'll see how the Brandon Miller thing pans out. But yeah, in a draft like this, and with two, I'd say generational talents and
I'd say
Scoot
that
and
too.
Vic, you gotta. I think LaMelo and Scoot could probably definitely figure it out, but that's just the Hornets' way, I guess. So. Those are our losers. Now transitioning to winners. For my first winner, this might be a little controversial, but I got the Wizards. Um, they kept Kyle Kuzma. He's kind of like the main guy there now, 4 years, 102. Um, Kind of the sleeper addition that they got was Tyus Jones in the 3-team Porzingis trade. I thought that was a huge gift for them. And then Jordan Poole in the CP trade, I thought was a pretty good get. I think with Tyus, Jordan Poole, and Kuz there, you got Denny as well. Um, I think you have a pretty solid foundation. I think Tyus will be a very, very good point guard for them and get Jordan Poole, Kuz in their spots and be able to help them facilitate their shots a little bit more. But I mean, I can't blame this new front office because they didn't give Bradley Beal that no trade clause for some ungodly reason. But um, I feel like they did the best that they could. With the no trade clause, you just can't really do much. So I feel like they kind of got the best that they could. Yeah, it's still a really, really bad return for a guy that was your kind of your franchise for the past couple of seasons. And but they finally are entering rebuild mode. Um, really do like Jordan Poole in that CP trade. I feel like they definitely finessed the Warriors in that deal as well as getting picks in that deal as well, as I mentioned. But got a little bit of a youth movement there. I really do like the three guys that they added this offseason. And I'm sure they'll definitely be bad, that's for sure, but I'm sure we'll see some high scoring performances from Jordan Poole and Kuz a lot. So that could be a little bit of fun if you're just bored and want to watch basketball. Go ahead and just watch Jordan and Kuz shoot like 20 shots each. So not the prettiest winner, but I think for entering a rebuild, they got three solid players to work with heading into year one of this rebuild. So I'll take it if I'm a Wizards fan.
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely a different kind of outlook on how people are definitely looking at this team. But I think when you look at it and you have your starting kind of first 3 spots is Tyus, Jordan Poole, and Kuzma, I don't think it's terrible. Definitely still a really bad roster, but I think those three kind of moving forward um, definitely kind of have a little bit of a bright spot. I'm gonna need to see more out of Denny this year though, because
Yeah.
it's been a couple years. Well, maybe not. I don't even know how many years it's been, but realistically, we kind of need to see him start to kind of find his own, and this is kind of the perfect time. So we will have to see. I think for my first winner, I think it's a little obvious. I'm gonna say the Spurs. Obviously, they get the luckiest, um, you know, strain of luck and getting all the way up to the number 1 pick, and they land Wemby, which I think makes his debut tonight in the summer league. But I think for them already having that historic of a franchise, and then the one thing that obviously kind of gets everyone talking about the Spurs again after having a down couple of years is, getting the number 1 overall pick with, probably a generational player in it is, the most Spurs thing to do. But I'm really excited to watch this team this year. I really can't wait to see how Wemby does and, what kind of happens with him getting Pop under his, as a coach, as your first ever coach is in the NBA is pretty cool. I think personally he will struggle though. I think when you're that tall and, we've definitely seen it happen in the NBA before, it's kind of 50-50 on what happens, but I think it's definitely will be a transition for him. But I think this young core will definitely have a lot of kind of room to grow with each other, like they've already have been already. I think Wembanyama, Malachi Branham, who just kind of torched the Lakers, I think like 2 nights ago. We already know Keldon Johnson, both the Johnsons. And I'm just really excited just to kind of see these two young teams in Texas kind of grow this season in the Rockets and Spurs. I won't say the Rockets are kind of a winner either, or no, they're not a winner because, I already mentioned it when Matt was talking about them. Those deals were a little over the top, but I think we'll kind of have to see how it plays out this year for the Spurs. But I hope next year that they make, kind of a splash move and kind of do something big. But I think for this year, another step into their rebuild, I think it's kind of gone as perfect as you can see it go. So I'm excited to see what happens with this roster and, how Pop can kind of, get these young guys to start winning some basketball games.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, not much to say about them. You just got Vic, so
It's just Vic, yeah.
yeah.
Heading
into
Jones.
Go ahead.
They also re-signed Trey Jones, which I think he's a good point guard for them. So, and the deal wasn't terrible, so good for them.
Yeah, for sure. My next winner is the Boston Celtics. They got Kristaps Porzingis in the 3-teamer, the infamous trade that almost fell apart. But they got Porzingis. They signed him to extension, so he's there for the long haul for a couple of seasons. So I like that move. They also got a lot of draft compensation. You unfortunately had to trade Marcus Smart, which, yeah, he was your heart and soul of the team. But to get 2 firsts for him, I thought was pretty huge on top of getting Porzingis. So I think coming out of that 3-team trade, you definitely got what you needed. You got that forward, maybe center spot, depending on how you use them, on top of getting picks is pretty huge. But again, the Celtics have a lot of guards. I'm not saying they can fill his role in terms of just like locker room presence and his heart and all that, but they definitely have enough guard play to kind of fix that. And then you lose Grant Williams, which in the playoffs he didn't really play much. So I mean, you didn't really lose much, but I mean, you're able to get a sign and trade with him before you went to Dallas, so you at least got a couple of seconds for him as well. So they were just able to solidify that forward spot. I know Al Horford is getting up there in age, wasn't really too great in the playoffs. And he had Robert Williams, who on paper is a great athletic young center, but he's just been unable to stay on the court. Not saying Porzingis is the healthiest player in the world, but he is coming off like a 60 something games played this year. So I think this definitely helps the Celtics just in terms of a little more scoring punch alongside the 2Js. So definitely can't be mad this offseason. You get another high level player to put alongside your 2 stars, and then get some draft compensation on top of that just to build on more of a stockpile of picks. So loved this offseason for the Celtics, and still waiting on that Jaylen Brown extension, seeing if they're going to do that or not, if they're going to give him that like super max. So still waiting on that. If that were to happen, maybe I don't love their offseason that much, but I mean, if it's what you have to do to keep Jaylen Brown, I mean, sure, but wouldn't love the number like close to 300 mil if they sign him back. So, but for now, I really do like the Celtics off season. So definitely a winner to me.
Yeah, I think the Celtics. I think even last year as well, when they added Malcolm Brogdon, so many people were saying that they found a way to get better, and once again this offseason, they found a way to get better again. So it's at some point you really got to start wondering, when can they finally put it all together and win a championship? And um, we hope it's this year, unless that core might get blown up. But once again, they did the thing that they should have done, and they got better. So I'm gonna say for my second winner, I'm gonna go the Suns. I mentioned it a couple days ago to Matt, but I really like the moves that this team did. They got rid of Chris Paul, which is something that they knew they needed to do. DeAndre Ayton is still there. I think with the new coaching staff, I think he'll be better off, and hopefully he can kind of solve his issues with maybe some of the guys on the team. Obviously, getting Bradley Beal, that's huge and really just kind of gets another super team going for them. And I really like that deal for them when it happened. I think it just makes them a lot better of a team, obviously. But I think just overall the deal for them, it wasn't too much in my opinion, and realistically only giving away like picks and Chris Paul. I think I'm forgetting someone else, but I don't think it was that bad. Now,
Yep.
yeah, well, Andrew Shamet, my fault. Um, but kind of going into what happened on free agency. Now, none of these players are like absolutely crazy and will like go make. They're not names that will like open your eyes, but I think for what they had and just what these players do is honestly like perfect for them. Obviously, they got Damian Lee back, Yuta Watabe. Obviously, he can shoot, and he's a guy that can come off the bench, and he shot 44% from three last season. So I think that's a really good signing. And obviously, he's like just a demon in the corner, hit 51% from the corner. I think Yuta is definitely a good signing. Keita Bates Diop is another good signing. He's also a shooter who, for 2 years, 5 million, just being able to shoot is something that's definitely valued in this league. And people coming off the bench, it's kind of what teams look for. So I can't wait to see what he's able to do. Drew Eubanks, he's kind of like, I think, and out of those four, I think he's kind of the my least kind of big, well, not big name. Wow, I said big name for Drew Eubanks. He's kind of like, in terms of the signing and what they can kind of give, I view Drew Eubanks as the lowest out of them, but I still think for how much they got him, obviously for most of these guys, they're all minimums. I don't think he was a bad pickup, but I think the Eric Gordon signing a couple days ago was what kind of sealed it for me. I think that this team, for the money that they had to get out and get shooters, to get people who could come off the bench, and when KD's off the floor and it's just Booker and like Ayton from the starting lineup, you can enter Eric Gordon and just, hey, like you got to hit like 2 threes for us in a game, or you got to hit just this one shot. Same with Drew, same with Damian Lee, same with Uday. And I think that all five of those guys definitely could come in and they can help, and they can kind of do things that this bench wasn't able to do in the playoffs. Like guys like Terrence Ross, who just kind of disappeared, and TJ Warren, who barely got any play time. And obviously they still have Cameron Payne, and they brought back Josh Okogie. So I think that this bench got better, and I think that this upcoming season, I think we'll see a little bit more impact out of some of these guys. So I'm excited. I'm excited to kind of watch this team. Now, what will kind of happen in the playoffs, we don't know. We don't know how effective these guys will be, but I think for the guys that they had last season, I think this is definitely an upgrade for the bench, even though it may not be that big, but I think it's a little bit of an upgrade.
Yeah. Well, I know when we did the live stream, we were kind of memeing on the Suns, saying like, "Oh, they're loading up." But yeah, for obviously what they had, their top-heavy team, they're able to figure out a way to add some, at least on paper, some viable guys. I guess we'll see if they pan out or not. I know Yuta was a big name for. I know some Laker fans want him as well. for a veteran minimum guy who's shooting 44% from three. Yeah, you might not get a whole lot of playing time, but he definitely made some noise in Brooklyn. So I feel like he's definitely going to be an under the radar kind of guy. And then, yeah, same with you. The Eric Gordon signing was probably just the biggest signing that they could get for a minimum. Clippers let him walk to save $100+ million in tax, which, yeah, I would do that too. But to see him go to the Suns makes me a little irritated. But yeah, the Suns for what they did, yeah. You got Bradley Beal, which if you're usually a top heavy team, it usually doesn't work out well. So, but I mean, for what they got Bradley Beal for, I mean, you just got to take that kind of deal and just roll with the punches. So we'll see. They're following the Lakers blueprint, but I would say at least 5 times better than what we did. So, yeah, we'll see how it pans out. We'll see if a big three can change the narrative in a way, because I know it's been frowned upon the past couple of years. So we will see. And arguably the winner above or at the same level as the Suns, I got my homer pick, the LA Lakers. They were definitely able to make some moves heading into this free agency. They were able to keep Rui, 3-year 51, making 17, which I think is maybe a little higher than I projected. I'd say like 15, but only $2 million more is not going to be the end of the world. And to get Austin Reeves on, I believe it's 14 annually, is also a crazy value. Just to put in perspective, he's $2 million more than the mid-level, so that's something. And a guy that was expected to have offer sheets up to like $100 million. Thankfully, teams used their cap space up early, so it didn't really make much of a market for Austin. I saw the Spurs contemplated an offer sheet, but for some reason didn't do one. So, yeah, I love getting Rui and AR on great value. Same with D'Angelo Russell. A 1-and-1 gets a player option next summer, but to bring him back on an $18 million contract is great value as well. Especially when we first got him, he was looking for like a $30 million extension. And I know initially I was like, yeah, I'd probably give him that since it's what he's making now. Then it's slowly dwindled down. I was saying like 25. And then once the playoffs started, it was about 20. And I know in this offseason, Laker fans are kind of preparing for like a 20 to $25 million contract. Just didn't know the length and if there would be options or not. But yeah, to get D'Lo on an $18.5 million contract, you take that any day of the week. As well as Torian Prince, who was let go on I want to say $7 and change million contract from the Timberwolves. And you're able to snag him for $3 million less on a biannual exception is a huge steal. Coming off 38% from three last season. We'll get another chance to see if a shooter can actually shoot and maintain his percentages. I saw an interview saying he's striving for 40% this upcoming season, so I'm sure we'll see how that goes. Cam Reddish, there was a lot of rumors of him coming to the Lakers for the past couple of seasons. We finally get him on a veteran minimum. Kind of excited to see how he plays and what his role is, but I feel like this is kind of his last chance. If he doesn't make it work for the Lakers, I don't know if it ever will. So interested to see how Darvin uses him, how he plays off of LeBron and AD. So we'll see. And then similar to Jackson Hayes, I like the athleticism. I like his motor. Now, if he's the only center behind AD, it's not great, but I can't imagine that's going to be the case. So jury's still out on that. But for a flyer on a veteran minimum, still he was a lottery pick too. So I mean, still some upside there. Maybe throughout the season, you kind of slowly progress him into the system, slowly um, get him to grow throughout the year. I feel like that would probably be good. And then lastly, Gabe Vincent. Um, when this signing first broke, I wasn't too fond of it. Personally, because I didn't know what his market was. Obviously, he had a great playoff run. Just wasn't sure if he was mid-level ish kind of talent. So, but now, a couple days removed from that signing, I really like it. Um, you upgrade the Dennis Schroeder replacement. Um, I think Gabe is a lot better than Dennis, so um, I think you take that any day of the week. I know this past regular season he wasn't great shooting the ball, 33% from three during the regular season. So we'll see if he turns it around back in LA. But 3 years, 33, fully guaranteed, no options is a little concerning for me. But I guess we'll see if he lives up to the contract. But overall, can't complain. We got better this offseason. So um, you lose Mo Bamba, which could care less. You lose Malik Beasley, who wasn't great, but I mean, for Milwaukee to get him on a minimum is pretty good value. So we'll see how Malik pans out in Milwaukee. I'm sure he'll be just fine in comparison to what he did to us. So overall, can't be mad at the offseason. I think you definitely got better for a team that went to the conference final, 4 wins away from his championship, and um, Rob actually kept his word. He said he wanted to keep the core, and he managed to do that on great value too, not overpaying um, any of our guys like Rui or D'Angelo or Austin, but can't be mad at the offseason. I'm very excited for this Lakers team next season.
Yeah, obviously kind of want to let Matt go over the Lakers. They're obviously, I think, both of our like probably biggest winner in free agency.
Mm-hmm.
They dominated, and I'm very excited to see this roster kind of move forward and just um, I really like the youth that we're getting, and I think Rob's definitely preparing for LeBron's leave after this year. I think it's pretty obvious. Whether he retires or he goes to where his son gets drafted, I personally don't see LeBron here after this year. So um, definitely going to be interesting to see what happens with our young core and just kind of how they pan out and things like that. I'm going to say another winner for me. I'm going to say the Indiana Pacers. I think they had a pretty good free agency slash draft. I really like, and I know it was a little bit of an overpay, but I really like the Bruce Brown signing. They had the money, they had to spend the money, and it's only a 2-year deal, so I don't hate it. So I think going out and getting Bruce Brown, who's a guy who can impact the game in so many different ways. He can shoot. He's a guy who starts. He's a guy, another wing for them. I think he adds a lot of versatility to them for them. I think what else they got in Obi Toppin helps a lot with their depth. I know he kind of struggled in New York, but I'm excited to see what he can kind of bring and what he can do for this team. Um, and I think for their draft mainly as well. I think Jarris Walker is a really good addition for them, and I can't wait to see how he impacts the NBA and his level. I think he's really good on the defensive board or defensive boards. He can play defense. He can shoot. He's just kind of everywhere all at once. And I really think that this Indiana Pacers team is ready to kind of make that jump. I think that they're a playoff team this next year if everything kind of pans out. They also re-signed Tyrese, who I think definitely deserves that extension, and he's played really well to where he is a guy that, unlike kind of LaMelo, I kind of think that he he deserves that extension. He's been healthy. They still have Miles Turner. They still have Buddy Hield, despite all of those trade rumors with the Lakers. But I think that this team's just going to make that next step. And I don't know if they get to that second round or, make a really big run, but I think that they're a top 8 seed next year at least, in my opinion.
Yeah, can't be mad at what they did for sure. Personally, probably would have liked them to try to make a run at Kuz. I feel like that probably would have been an
Yeah.
interesting fit. But I mean, Bruce Brown, you can't be mad at that. Coming off a championship, I know he's not like too old. I forget how many years he's been in the league, but maybe he can be somewhat of a veteran presence for that young team. So we'll see. But yeah, Tyrese getting a huge bag, much deserved. And we'll see how this Pacers team looks. I think it's got a good balance of young talent and veterans. I think in a short term, they've definitely made their rebuild very interesting. And yeah, they're for sure going to be entertaining. And for my final winner, I got to go the Memphis Grizzlies, mainly just due to them getting Marcus Smart. Um, you have 2 Defensive Player of the Years on your team now, and Triple J, and now Marcus Smart. You got in that Porzingis trade. Wasn't a fan of giving up 2 firsts for Marcus Smart initially for the Grizzlies, but I mean, for what he provides, I think it makes sense. And for a team like the Grizzlies, where we saw that first round series with the Lakers, that they definitely need maturity. They need more veterans. And I completely forgot you're going to have Steven Adams as well. So you're going to have Marcus, Triple J, and Steven Adams. That's going to be great for them. And then signing Derrick Rose, yeah, it's not the greatest signing in terms of like flashiness, but I think, again, adding more veteran presence is going to be vital. And with Ja getting suspended, maybe Derrick Rose get some spot minutes in there. So we'll see. But I think for the most part, the Grizzlies kind of prioritize getting some guard play while Ja's suspended, but also making them veteran quality point guards. So I think they definitely did great. Can't be mad at it. Defensively, they're probably going to be at least top 5, I want to say, with the personnel that they have. You got off Dylan Brooks, which is a W for them. Also, a kind of interesting piece that they got in the signing trade with Dylan Brooks. They got Josh Christopher from the Rockets, which I find is a little bit of an interesting piece. He was kind of a highlight reel through his years coming up to the NBA. So we'll see. Maybe he gets some spot minutes off the bench. We'll see, but yeah, overall can't be mad at it. A team that was the 2nd seed got better. That's all you can ask for. They proved their worth in terms of holding it down with Ja out of there, and you can argue that Marcus Smart may be better than Tyus Jones. So, yeah, can't be mad at it. I think the Grizzlies are going to be really good when at full health and full strength, and hopefully they can stay that way. So, knock on wood. But yeah, really good offseason. I think Marcus Smart is definitely going to be a key piece for them and helping them mature just a lot faster. I think with his experience in Boston, all the playoff runs, getting to the finals, I think it's definitely going to help this Grizzlies team kind of come back down to earth and kind of take things a little more seriously. So I like this offseason for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, that just getting Marcus Smart is definitely always will be a win for any team. So I like kind of just switching out Brooks for Marcus, and I think Smart is definitely a guy that kind of gives them the just the maturity that they've been so desperately needing, and I'm kind of excited to see what he can bring for that franchise. So I'm gonna say my last winner. I'm gonna go with the Mavs, and before the Blazers matched that contract earlier, I think yesterday, they definitely were a bigger winner in my eyes. But I think overall, for what they were kind of given, I think it's definitely helped them, and they've definitely gotten better. Obviously, last year there were so many, criticisms and just questions going on the offseason. And I think they haven't answered all of them, but they definitely have tried. I think getting Seth Curry definitely helps with the shooting that they so desperately needed. I think him and, Josh Green, who kind of showed himself a little bit last year, definitely helps this roster. I think the Rashawn Holmes trade was definitely pretty good. I don't think he'll have much impact, but I think he just gives you a little bit more of that depth that you've been kind of needing on that bench, and maybe a guy that can give you 10 to 15 minutes a night. Grant Williams, I think, is the big headliner. He's obviously been, a guy that's really helped Boston over these past couple of years, get so many crucial wins and just being that, one of like that rock on defense and just kind of being a good locker room guy. And I think he'll definitely fit in really well in Dallas. And I'm kind of excited to see what happens with him. Obviously, they re-signed Dwight Powell, which I don't really. That's the one thing I really don't like. I don't think Dwight Powell's that good, but you got to do what you got to do. Christian Wood still not re-signed, or we still don't know where he's going. But if they can somehow bring him back, they probably won't. But I still think he was a pretty good piece for that team. They also got Derek Lively through the draft. I think he's definitely a really good defensive big, and he'll definitely find a way to make an impact in the NBA quick, since he's not much of a scorer, but we'll have to kind of see what happens. But I think for what they had, I think this roster definitely kind of reloaded a little bit, and I expect them to at least make the play-in next year. Obviously, they completely missed it this year, but I think the playoffs definitely are on their future. And yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what happens with another year of Kyrie and Luka, and they have a whole nother kind of off season, and they have time to figure it out a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Similar to the Suns, they're a little less top heavy, but Kyrie and Luka there. You signed Kyrie to a 3-year deal, which is probably the middle ground for Kyrie and getting a new contract. You're not tied up a whole lot of years with Kyrie in case things go south like they tend to do. 3 years, 126, I think, is pretty fair. And then, yeah, getting Grant Williams is pretty huge. I think in a sign and trade, I think that's probably more of an upgrade than Reggie Bullock, who's, I think Grant's just a lot younger and probably a little more better on defense. So definitely take that. I really like the Seth Curry signing. Having him run it back in Dallas is pretty huge for them. And yeah, Rashawn Holmes, he hasn't seen the court in the fat minutes, so we'll see what he provides there. Also interested to see what happens with JaVale there, what they do with him, if they waive him, trade him, do something with him. Guess we'll see. But yeah, Derek Lively is another center. Interested to see how much PT he gets heading into this next year. But yeah, again, to what you said, Dallas, with what they had, they made it work. That's for sure. And they gave Grant Williams a pretty fair contract. So, yeah, we will see how that pans out for the Dallas Mavericks. I definitely expect them to be in the playoffs, at least at the very minimum, like lower end, like 6 seed-ish. Don't expect them to be back down the 10th to like 12th spot again. So, yeah, the West going to be insane this year. Somehow gets more and more competitive each and every year. So, definitely going to be interesting. So, those are our winners and losers of free agency thus far. Guess we just wait out on a potential Dame and Harden trade and kind of go from there. But at this point, there's not really too many moves to be made. You mentioned Christian Wood. I feel like he's kind of like sadly, like the biggest name left. So, yeah, not many more signings to be had. So, I feel like this is probably the safe time to make winners and losers. But yeah, that will do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in, however you did, whether on YouTube or audio. Thank you for listening. And yeah, the free agency has been fun. Now we enjoy Summer League. Vic, his debut is tonight, I believe. So get to watch him for the first time, see how he plays. But yeah, the off season is slowly coming to a close. So now we just wait on the big trades to be made, and we will probably make reactions to those moves whenever they are made and go from there. So we will see you guys next time.